Hey guys, another video from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons monsters, lycanthropes.
Can we start it over again? I was like poking myself in the eye while you said it. Hold on just a second.
Are you done poking yourself in the eye yet?
Almost.
Can I poke you in the eye now?
No! Alright, I'm good now.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Hey guys, Nerdarchy here, for nerds by nerds, and today we're talking about Dungeons & Dragons monsters, lycanthropes. I'm Ted, we have
Ryan.
Nate.
Dave.
So, lycanthropes, what do we guys think?
I like them. That's a wrap. Good video.
Alright, we'll catch you next time.
Whoa, I don't like them.
Oh, man!
Why don't you like
Now
them?
we have to keep going with the video.
Okay.
I do not like wererats. I've been traumatized after several games now.
Nice. Tell us about your traumatization with wererats.
Well,
We're on the doll. We're on the adventure doll that the wererat touch you.
it was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, wererats can be really devious because they fold themselves, like many lycanthropes, they can fold themselves into normal society during the day, and when they're forced to transform or when they feel like transforming, in some cases, in some editions they can do that easier. In others, they could be rogue groups, they can be the city mayor, you don't really know until they try and gnaw your face off. So,
And usually they go and they drool on their weapons, but also can give you lycanthropy or feel fever. Dun dun dun.
yes, it depends on whether or not they want more.
One bumps your stats and one really F's your stats.
Yeah, it all depends on whether or not they want to have you join the group or, join in the ground. Get eaten by some ghoul later.
So wererats, they're always a fun monster because one, in an urban setting, your PCs really don't expect a lot of monsters. Especially if they're new to the game, you kind of feel like you're in the city, it's safe.
Right.
Right, but then the next thing you know, the hobos are going missing from the alleys. Sewer grates are being left open. Then there's rumors of alligators in the sewers, and you got all this stuff going on. And maybe all of a sudden rats are running rampant in the city. They have a pest control problem. You can have all these things going on that kind of allude to the wererats without actually anyone knowing what's going on. And like you said, the mayor could be a wererat. The city guards could be wererats. The thieves guild could be run by the wererats. You can have gangs.
Your fellow nerdarchists could be wererats.
Yeah. So, it is an insidious and devious monster, and it's one that can kind of lurk around your campaign for a while before you actually introduce it to the characters, to your players.
Yeah, and that's all part of the the campaign building that we're trying to help out here. Having access to a low-level monster that at the same time can be bumped up with class levels and build them as you see fit, and be able to do so much with them and have them, as you say, in safe society of in the city or town.
Especially if it's used in a way like peeling away an onion layer at a time. You have, maybe you find out a city guard was gnawing on somebody that night and you stopped him. Well, you found out that he was not just any city guard that was going crazy. He was something more monstrous. And after you get further and further, you can find out things about the Thieves Guild or some gang. And so you're not dealing with just one wererat as the entire party. You're dealing with multiple wererats at once.
So you've got multiple sessions worth of material all built around just this idea of,
just
of
uncovering the real truth behind what's going on.
And the kind of thing about that is lycanthropes in general just lend themselves to a bit of an element of an investigative game.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that penetrate like society, civilizations more completely, like the wererats, like you're going to spend a lot more time probably in the investigative end of that versus like a werewolf or whatever, because they usually just like wreak utter havoc in an area, and then they get the hell out, and then they're off to the next town to do the same
and you
thing.
just have to follow the trail of slaughter.
Yeah, exactly.
And with werewolves, you absolutely could have a more psychological game, where you're trying to find out who this person is and deal with the actual carnage that's left over without actually engaging in combat the werewolf.
Well, yeah, and not only that, your players, if you do it well, your players don't know it's a werewolf. It should look like wild animal attacks. Really,
Right.
people are going missing. You hear noises. So you can have this really suspenseful build up to where a town is totally in fear to go out at night. Everyone's barring their doors, or they're locking their windows, and if no one's paying attention to like the cycles of the moon, or any of this other stuff that's going on, you can drag it out for a while. And that's the real trick is, the difference between a good DM and a great DM is they're going to build the suspense. They're going to invest your players in that town, in that city, and make them care about what's going on,
And then crush it.
well, and before they really reveal what the true threat, the nature of it.
You know what's hard about those sort of investigative games, like games where you sprinkle clues throughout, is just that like how metagamey it can get, because like people like are too aware of like the common monsters and what the likely causes of things are, that like they jump ahead like 10 steps of what it would actually take for your character to figure out
Right.
what's going on. Because like, yeah, we're all indoctrinated in like the mythos of like were creatures and vampires and stuff like that. But for your character, it's going to be this weird supernatural thing that they've probably never encountered. Maybe heard like one legend or rumor,
Right.
but they wouldn't have we have all this popular culture things about what you do with werewolves that like all of, your characters shouldn't have all the knowledge of like basically centuries of lore and fiction.
I think a good way to mitigate that issue is to have minstrels and storytellers and just old people that are around telling stories tell different types of stories, like maybe some kind of mysterious something that's invisible, that's some kind of wild beast, like a magical beast.
Some
Or-
misleading tales, basically.
Well, not so much misleading as just like
Throwing out the red herrings.
the villagers themselves are desperately trying to figure out what actually is going on. I think it makes it more real that they would themselves and kind of investigate in their own like illiterate villager way to try and figure out whether or not it is this terrible black beast of whatever.
See?
Well, and that's a good idea, because then you're going to plant seeds in the players' minds that it's this other thing. But at the same time, you're creating this psychological effect on the villagers, on the town. And as a DM, if you can convey this, it will creep into your players, even if they're kind of metagaming. But by them telling different stories, kind of like psyching each other out, even more and more. So they're becoming...
Which one is it?
They're becoming more terrified of what's actually out there, and now you got all these rumors floating around.
And the other thing you can do, which we've talked about in other videos, is to make a tweak or a twist on what the rules are. If somebody says, well, it's got to be this, and therefore I need to use these things, and they start pulling out what it takes to bring down a lycanthrope, then let's not have it work this time. And add another layer to the issue, because as we talked about with trolls, all right, fire usually brings them down. Well, for some reason this time it didn't. And that'll really scare the hell out of people when this is supposed to work. I've read the rule book. This is supposed to work.
Yeah, what if it's like a weird volcanic rock troll, but you don't know that because
so with the lycanthrope, okay, silver didn't work this time. Well, maybe you need to use electrum, or maybe you need to use gold or platinum,
cold iron, or something weird.
some other thing that's not not normal, and this one is different, or maybe the whole sect is different. And you can really change things as the DM so that you can.
Well, you know what I like too, even though it's not really far removed from what the actual rules say, is I like doing it where, okay, say it's a lycanthrope, and say you have to use silver to overcome DR. Magic doesn't actually do it. It has to be silvered weapons, which, who has silvered weapons, That could be, in the past it actually has been a thing for us where we were fighting wererats, and we had to figure out how to get silver to have silvered weapons to combat them. I think we were resorting to trying to use silverware.
I was sharpening a butter knife. That was pure silver.
I think I wound up using a fork.
So there can be a quest to kind of do the quest after they kind of solve what it is, and then how do you bring it down? Where do Where do you get your quote-unquote silver bullet?
Oh, it would be pretty interesting. Like, I mean, it could be wererats, it could be another lycanthrope group. Basically, there's a shortage, before they commit their mayhem, there's a shortage of silver. Like, nobody knows where all the silver, like, weapons and implements are going. And then, out of nowhere, lycanthropes descend, and nobody's got a silver weapon to deal with them.
I would think it would be more well, it would be, I like that idea. I think it would be in character for something like a wererat.
The
to
wererats,
throw it somewhere in the sewer.
Stockpile them.
Yeah.
Stockpile them
Just
somewhere.
like
Under guard.
it's trash go away somewhere. So
Yeah.
maybe in like a deep well or something. Well, so the players have a chance of maybe like a little side quest that they could actually find that cache of silver.
That's actually an awesome
Stockpile.
idea.
Yeah.
Stockpile, yeah.
And like you said, that fits with the wererats perfectly.
Yeah.
In the sense that rats tend to be hoarders, and the sense that a wererat is a much more devious version of a lycanthrope. They're not your bruisers, so they have to do it. They have to be cunning. They can't bruise their way through it. So we have some other kinds of lycanthropes. Actually,
Big bruiser.
pretty much every animal seems to have a lycanthrope attached to it now,
yeah.
since I've been playing D&D. And some of them are really silly. But
The were-platypus, perhaps?
perhaps, I wouldn't be surprised. But did anybody got any good lycanthrope stories from gaming? Because if not, I got one.
Well, go for yours.
Yeah.
All right. So, we were gaming, and this is way back in the AD&D game days, and I was a teenager playing, and our DM, Steve, was awesome. Different Steve.
Yeah, different Steve.
But, in a dungeon, we encountered a werewolf, and we finally brought it down after quite a few scrapes and scratches and a couple bites. Well, what I didn't know, and what my DM had done, is I had contracted lycanthropy. So we were fighting goblins or orcs or something, and they actually killed me. They brought me down, except for, what it did was triggered my first change. So so my character change, bursts out of his armor, gets up and starts ripping the faces off of these goblins. So I actually got to play a little bit of a werewolf in the early days, for a little while, because I actually defeated the werewolf but lost to the werewolf in the end by becoming a werewolf. Because it wasn't like in 3rd edition where you just slap a template on and go, oh, this is great, I'm even better now. You didn't have control over it. You changed when your DM said you changed.
Right.
And
you were a monster.
And you were a monster. Because once you start, I think, my party had actually fled. Or, after I got done with the goblins, I would have been ripping into them. Because that's how we rolled back in the AD&D games. It just went that way. So, that's my lycanthropy story. That's all I got. But,
that's pretty cool. I mean, I myself have never really, had to deal with it. The DMs have never really done a lot of throwing them at us. I believe I've fought them, but it was always what's the chance of actually getting bit? Do you actually contract it? But let's look at, what other uses, do we see, for lycanthropes?
Like, lycanthropic barbarian tribes, say that one tribe they have like a totem animal, and they all like partake of being that sort of lycanthrope, say Were-Boar, perhaps, because they're pretty badass in berserkery.
You could have
and
Badgers. We're badgers.
Badgers, yeah.
badgers. We don't need no stinking badgers.
honey badger. But no, going off the barbarian tribe, the animal doesn't matter so much, but the concept is an interesting one, and it actually makes me think of a modern book, Full Moon.
Right.
Where there were lycanthropes in that book, although they were different. They weren't the D&D lycanthropes where the shape changed, but they were like a motorcycle gang, right? Mm-hmm. Which is and they kind of followed the tenets of like a berserker from Viking culture. So, it's kind of like it's kind of like a modern day analog to that barbarian tribe. So you can do the same kind of thing in your D&D game, in your Pathfinder game, where maybe you encounter the tribe, during the day or when they're not in their change cycle, and it's kind of cool and you're hanging out and you're partying, You know, and then next thing you know, maybe middle of the night, all of a sudden they're like wolfing out or boring out or whatever they're doing. And your characters, and it's a whole tribe of them.
And all hell's breaking loose.
And the players are going to be, holy crap. I mean, a whole tribe of lycanthropes, even, you know, wererats, if you're in the middle of them going, you know, wererat to my left, wererat to my right, I can't swing a dead goblin without a wererat.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of screwed. Now, not that has to be a combat encounter.
Well, what you could say, you could start it off to give them some time, is like you hear like the sounds of the start of the change, and so like you give a few rounds where they have a chance to just run, because that's going to be.
That's not what my players would do.
Maybe they
take
think
their time
someone
to try to
poisoned
attack
the
them.
meat or something,
Yeah.
or something's going on where.
But no, that would, you know, and that creates a whole different scenario where, you know, if your players are smarter than mine, they start running and then the hunt begins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes this kind of like chase.
The encounter is getting away.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's a combination of skill rolls and, you know, intelligence checks and all kinds of other things to try and say, you know, well, which direction do we go? You know, let's try this. Let's try that.
Or
And-
just outrun your fellow party members. There you go. Worst case scenario.
Hopefully you have a halfling in the group or a gnome.
Trip the halfling, trip the dwarf, and keep running.
And be the wood elf. Be
Yes, be the wood elf.
So I mean, but it's also possible, you know, at least in third edition, where the lycanthropes actually had control, that they could actually be used as a role playing encounter. You know, not every monster that's out there do you need to kill it and take its loot. You know, and you know, there's also the other side of the coin of, you know, is it a blessing and is it a curse? You know, if it's a curse, you know, maybe someone, you know, that's actually dear to a party member has contracted this, and you got to find a cure. You know, you know, you don't want to kill the person, you want to get it out of them. So that's a whole quest in and of itself right there.
Or, you know, and along those same lines, what if that person starts doing bad things and they don't want to, there's the guilt, you know, you have to stop them, but you don't want to kill them because it isn't actually, it's a friend or a family member. You want to cure them,
But not kill them.
but not kill, and it's a werewolf, and you're trying to bang down a freaking werewolf.
Right.
You know, and you know, maybe part of the adventure is actually building the chamber that holds them during the change until
And then
you can
the
figure it
trap
out.
to get them in there or whatever.
Or dealing with you know, the angry villagers that you've figured it out. You know who it is. You don't want to kill them, but they've killed somebody in town. Now you need to dissuade the town from
Taking
killing
their
your friend,
vengeance.
because as far as they're concerned, this body did it, regardless of, you know, the fact that it's uncontrollable side effect of this curse. You know, they still did it. So
You know, or you know,
sort of a Jekyll and Hyde. sort of.
another thing that might be fun too is like, say one of your players contracted, but you're going old school with it, going, nah, this is not a blessing, and this is not going to help you, and you're going to tear into your party members as soon as you change, to where they have a timeline that they have to try and figure out the cure before the first change.
right.
You know, so you can, you know, it could be like a race against the clock, in addition to trying to solve the problem.
Or maybe they find out about it after the first change. They've done something, and you know, okay, the full moon's done. Now, okay, we know you're a werewolf. You know, we gotta take care of this before it happens again.
Oh, wait a minute, you guys, any of you guys read Time of Troubles?
No.
Forgotten Realms?
Nah.
I feel like I have, but I don't remember about it.
Oh my God, kill me now.
I think I've read it.
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe.
okay, so one of the main characters is cursed, and his curse is anytime he does an unselfish act, he takes the form of the beast. So, you know, so he's always coming off as this mercenary and this selfish person, but he has to, or he turns. And like one of the things is they're in the wilderness, they're starving, there's no food, they don't even have the means to hunt, and he says, you know, in an angry huff, he wants, I'll do it, I'll take care of it, I'll find food. So he's committed to an unselfish act, which means he's going to change. So he wanders off from the rest of the group far enough, so when he changes, and the change is really cool because he just like, he rips out of his flesh and doesn't turn into a hybrid, but turns into a panther and hunts down a deer. And, you know, he comes back hours later, smeared in blood, and and dragging the deer carcass. And when he changes back, he basically erupts from the panther, which is so you can do things like that that are more interesting and visual. And as a DM, I think you need to take your time. Like going back to the barbarian tribes, and they start changing. Like you can make that happen over the course of like 6 rounds, 10 rounds. It's a slow thing, where for the first 3 rounds, maybe they don't know what's going on. Like they're contorting, they're arching back so far you think they're going to break their own back. They're making these weird noises, but then you see the hairs start popping out, the fangs start coming, the muzzle. You really just need to take your time and explain it, because there's one thing to go, all right, everyone knows what this is. We've all played it. We metagame. But if you describe it to your players as they never heard it described before, instead of rushing through it, it's going to garner a different reaction. You can start invoking emotion from them, and then if you do that well enough, it helps to set aside the metagame of it. If you can invoke fear for their players' characters' lives, so you have to kill one of their characters during the course of their career at some point to make this really work. So you're not effing around.
Right. You gotta know you're serious.
Yeah. But if you can let them know, wow, this is a really bad thing. If you can convey that, it helps put aside the metagame, I think. I mean, that's been my experience with other DMs.
So let's walk it up the power chain. We like having the ability to have them at all kinds of different levels. We talked about wererats being a very, very obvious low level situation. Where do you see it going from there?
Well, with lycanthropes, to be honest with you, it's really hard, because there really is a were-beast for everything. Especially in 3.x, like they got really crazy with all the splat books, and then I'm sure Pathfinder isn't any different. So, where's as far as I know, towards the top, you've got the werebear, and
Were-tiger was pretty high up there.
Yeah, the were-tiger,
Were-dragon.
Don't
forget the were-dragon.
Don't even get me started on that.
no, let us forget.
I want to see the stats on a were-dragon. I think that's just absurd.
Yeah, from wererat, you might go to were-seal. I'm not sure. and yeah,
Were-rabbit.
We've joked about the were-platypus, but I really think there is a weird were-seal.
Yeah.
But selkies, weren't they called selkies or something? And it's essentially they were were-seals. But so as far as the power level goes, with lycanthrope anything, it can pretty much just keep going.
Well, and then there's class levels you can throw on there too.
Exactly.
Like say third edition wise, like you give it levels in rogue or ranger or whatever.
Barbarian.
Or druid. Actually, druid's a pretty interesting one you can take. Like a one, especially like a nature, like a druid that's kind of figured out how to control his bestial nature. I mean, Were-Boars tend toward, I think, like neutral or neutral good anyway.
I feel like there's a prestige
That's
class
the bear.
in 3 point whatever.
Boars are kind of
bear.
pretty-
I mean, bear.
For druids, shape changing and were form of. I feel like there's a prestige class.
And there
somewhere.
was also too.
Well, then I'm right then.
There was a mechanic in third edition that were basically like will saves that you would make or wisdom checks.
No, there was a skill you could take.
Yeah, no, there was a skill, but there's also there's feats that would help you with your controlling your shapeshifting. But anyway, all that to be said, like a druid NPC that's like figured out how to control his lycanthropy, or maybe because druids can just have one aspect of their alignment be neutral, they could totally embrace it, and going
The bestial aspect
well,
of it.
they really enjoy like terrorizing civilization, like the terror of nature.
So with class levels and a variety of lycanthrope forms, there's plenty of material to work with. Is there anything else anybody wanted to really put in there?
I mean, aside from the fact that you could actually base a whole campaign just around one particular lycanthrope, especially wererats, even though they're kind of looked at as the weakest of them, they're actually the most organized, the most social. So they're actually, in my opinion, one of the more fun.
The more sinister.
Yeah, more sinister, more fun from the game master's perspective, Lycanthrope the Run. Where the other ones, you know, you can run some sessions.
A few
off
sessions,
of it.
exactly. They
But
don't have this
a
longevity.
you can really run a campaign. You could base the whole campaign.
Well,
You could have an
becomes
entire urban campaign on that.
It becomes very conspiracy-esque, like, is what the Were-Rat gives you, whereas, like, the other thing is it's like, they're just a horrible monster, and, like, maybe they'll infect other people, but, like, they're not as far-reaching as you would see the Were-Rat going. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I've even seen, you know, wererats have guilds.
Yeah.
You know, represented, I believe, in Forgotten Realms, Kalimport. You know, didn't they get into that with
Absolutely.
Yeah.
with the Companions of the Hall series?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of cool things like you could do with that. And, you know, the truth of the matter is you could do it with other lycanthropes. And if you did, it would have more of an impact because it hasn't been explored as much. You know, the real key, the real trick would be finding a interesting way to do it. What about like a society of aristocrat Were-Boars? I could so see that. You know, because the aristocrats on their own kind of tend to be gluttonous. You know, and what if that aspect has come through from the animalistic aspect of the Were-Boar? You know, and maybe they do crazy things like they hold hunts, but they don't hunt. You know, they're not hunting deer. You know, so there could be this whole thing built up around it where your players have to infiltrate this organization, and then they find it's out way worse than they thought it was. Right. Because they're not just, you know, nobles doing bad things. They're noble monsters doing bad things.
Right. Well, and also, too, so you can take it into a bit of a genre, like a Ravenloft sort of thing, you know, like the sort of, you know, the suspense horror aspect of it. I mean, everything you're doing with running them well anyway is building suspense or whatever, attention. But, I mean, if you're going for that whole genre feel, like, across the board in your campaign, Lycanthropes fit in pretty nicely, you know, like a little bit of a thriller.
So, you know, I think it's a pretty good overview for the Lycanthrope. You guys have something better for us, drop in the comments. Tell us your Lycanthrope stories. We'd love to hear them. With that, like, subscribe, comment. Check out the Facebook page. Like us there. Nerdarchy.com.
We're on Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram.
Everywhere. Just, you guys, don't get bitten by a were-rat. That's our friendly advice to you.
So until next time, my friends,
Stay nerdy.